Hello, everybody. I'm here to share with you just my thoughts and ideas of the using AI in school. And so there's a lot of, conversation, webinars, and people that I've gone to and watched, and they discuss about, having AI policies. I've seen some AI policies, but one of the things that keeps on coming up over and over again, how do you implement it? What does it look like on a structure level? And this is kind of a guide of a thought that I've had. And just say out of disclosure, this is created by notebooklm. But my thoughts and ideas about how to navigate AI safety in the school environment. Hopefully, this will navigate and give you a framework of what my thoughts and ideas how AI should be implemented in a K-12 school environment. Now, this is a roadmap, and obviously, this is my thought ideas coming out. But if this is something that you're interested in doing, implementing in your school, but I think this would be a really good approach to utilizing AI in your school and safeguarding the students. And this analogy of being a student driver, I think was the key element of how we can implement that or what does it look like. And so what I mean by that is that part of the guidelines that we have as being, uh, using AI in school uses a guide before they independently use it. So we need to teach them. It's kind of like driving a car. Before they are able to get behind the wheels of this very high-tech machine, they need to know the safety elements of what it means to drive the AI components or software. Learn about the ethics of driving or the using the AI in the classrooms. The character of accountability of it is a privilege. Thinking of that mentality and that we have a responsibility why when we use AI to be responsible for people around us. So obviously this is the core commitment about using AI. Kind of these are commitment things we see typically in a conference and we see people say, hey, we need, teach ethics, we need to teach them responsibility. Yes, and this is the part that a lot of people got to, but they haven't got to the next part. Now, how do you implement it? So here I've created this idea of this driving kind of a metaphor. So as an elementary students, they ride in cars, but they're not allowed to drive it. They're not allowed to touch the key elements of the car that makes the decision of how the car is run. So in many ways that, they're the passenger, but they get to experience the elements of the this amazing vehicle that one day we'll be able to use. And same thing, the kids will see how it's being used responsibly by the adults in the car and how to look around everybody else how they're using it. So they're the passengers in the car, and the core focus is really observation for the elementary. And so in this place, teachers create the AI software, and they can interact with AI, but they're not allowed to use the actual software where they do the access to the AI. So you may generate AI generated music, AI images, have them interact in, with storytelling. But again, they're not allowed to manipulate the elements themselves to do their work and so forth. So really it's teacher everything. But in middle school, kind of very similar to before we get driving. They learn about driving. They learn about the ethics and privilege of AI, what it means. So as a teacher in the middle school setting, we would teach those core elements to this. So it's more philosophical based and a supervised study, no independent tools utilized. Again, studying the ethics, the world studies of how it's used and then what are the good, the bad, and some of the dangers of AI. And once they get into high school, then we can use the idea, the provisional license kind of mentality where they finally get the practical application, but they use it incrementally throughout high school, where then they will eventually have full usage of it. So that's kind of the idea behind this, implementing wise. So my idea was kind of showing you a little bit how this works out. So as a passenger, they get to see the kind of the elements of the AI world that they're going to experience in the future. But they're again seated, safeguarded by the teacher. But they're building curiosity. They're seeing things, finding the connection. How are they going to be able to drive this vehicle of this AI later on? But as teachers, we're the driver. We are engaging the safety elements for these kids. But they're not allowed to touch the steering wheel, basically, which is the AI software. But they can interact. They can push the button for windows down, kind of interacting with the car in a safe way. So they can still do that. But once they get into sixth and eighth grade, learn about the ethical learning. And so learning the key elements of using AI is a privilege and contingent of demonstrating responsibility. They need to show the responsibility how AI is being used. And of course, strict boundaries are unsupervised independent AI tools like ChatGPT or image generators. They're not allowed to use. Now, some of you guys are saying, hey, they're going to go home and use it. Yes. And this is kind of a metaphor expression, but we still have kids, we tell kids not to do things that are breaking the law or they shouldn't be doing. But yes, obviously, kids still do it. We tell kids not to smoke, yet there's some kids who will do it. There's some kids who will be drinking, should not be doing that, but they will be. But the guide aspect of what we're doing teaching in class, it would be the progression of this kind of the breakdown between grade levels, how we can then teach them as a whole the boundaries behind this. And hopefully this would be the structural element that I think that would be the best way to approach this in teaching and implementing in the classroom. But once they get into the ninth and 12th grade, they get the kind of that license, the excitement, knowing the fact that they've gone through the process of learning about the ethics, gone through the testing, figuring out, testing that they have completed the idea of understanding what it means to be a responsible user of AI. And so doing so, they get this kind of the provisional license and when the ninth, 12th grade, this idea that they will use it responsibly. Once they get it behind the wheels, this is just a breakdown here, what the AI broke down, but any school can do it within the grouping from 9 through 12. If you want to break it down 9 to 10, 11, 12, it doesn't matter. But the idea is to first introduce it to the learner's permit and then start the basic elements of using it in a explicit teacher authorized area. So meaning the teacher gives specific, consent saying you can use this. And as they continue to develop the usage of AI in a responsible manner and be able to use it in full right around when they get to 12th grade. And so this is kind of the breakdown of this idea of how to allow students, I think, to use it. Now, within the elementary, there's a lot of debate. Should students use it here in elementary or in middle school? But I think this kind of the idea metaphor approach is teaching them, not allowing elementary kids use it, but junior high, learning the ethics behind the responsibility, and then in high school, learning the actual technical element, you allow them to use it. Green. So with this kind of this idea, brainstorming ideas, go with authorization. So teachers say, hey, you can use this one, you can use this AI element, yellow or anything the cautionary. So red, things that they're not allowed to do. And these are things specifically going to be mentioned or things that a school would need to clarify. What are the green zones? What is the yellow zone? What is the red zone? Things you cannot do within each area. So as we can see, if you look at elementary, we can definitely say at all levels, they're not allowed to use it. So we can see the cautionary elements of that, so it's a red zone for elementary, but once they get into the yellow, maybe junior high, talk about the specific areas of, of the ethics behind it. Then, of course, in high school, green lighting certain approved AI softwares that students can use. But the AI ethical codes here, as we see here, the accountability, integrity, learning, wisdom, respect, responsibility. These are all things that I think, for me also as a believer, align with Christian values of stewardship, that we are to use wisdom and use it for the good of mankind, not for personal selfish ambition, but for the betterment of improving society as a whole. But there's a lot of these AI ethical codes that you can use to divide, but these are things that you can set up and saying these are the codes that we adhere by as a school setting. Accountability structures, citations, verification. These are all things that needs to be implemented and documentation, conversations, and reflection with the students in the classroom. And these accountability structures are built into those kind of, again, incremented built in elementary, talking about those elements, reflecting, these are AI versus real. And junior high, they talk about the, conversation with the students. Is AI a good thing? Again, the ethical aspect of AI, which could be used for bad. And then, of course, and later on, citing the AI thing. And so this is part of the reason why I'm letting you know this was generated by Google Notebook LM, but I also use School AI to help kind of outline the parameters or the prompt for this notion. But everything, the thoughts in my head, the idea was the one that I was put forth in every aspect of my ideas coming in. And then, of course, I would tweak it and I had to make some adjustments here. But that's the whole point is that you give AI the credit where it's due. And then realizing that, certain things are not by man, but of course, the AI assisted. And so how do we do that? And these are kind of the ways to be implementing that. How do we deal with, violations? We can have several violations. First violation, talk about meeting with teachers, loss of privilege. Second violation is doing a detour, requiring digital ethic workshop again. So you're gonna have to go back and have to redo the testing, kind of like drivers. And if you abuse the privilege, you get your license revoked. You got to go back to school, possibly lose it for a year or two. Kind of the same mentality. This is things that I think AI is that much of a tool, but also it could be a very dangerous tool that can be out there, can cause harm, real harm. And so just like a car. And so we need to be very, very cautious and of course have those roadblocks and then these guidelines and of course the consequences in place for these students to realize that it can be revoked. It's not something that you can be utilizing. Now, like I said, how can we regulate that? Is that something that we can, as a school, regulate? And that's a good question. Is it something that, as a school guideline, how do we facilitate that? And is it something, a guideline we provide within the school grounds? So again, outside of that parameter of a school at home, there's a lot of things we cannot control, but within the school parameters, this is something that I think that we can, as a school, be able to do. So again, elementary instructors, curating, thinking out loud, facilitating, and introducing AI as the end product, and now allowing the kids. Middle schoolers teach, the ethical guidelines, moral reasoning, all those case studies, and high school becomes the hands-on experience with AI. So obviously, some of the things that we need to do is talk with the parents, let them know, and this would be a co-pilot, me asking parents for partnership in this idea, innovation with wisdom. And so why it's important, not just to introduce AI, but what are the guardrails in place and why it's in place. And so, and learning about this. And so asking students questions about AI as they go. But fundamentally having this setup in school will ultimately help parents see those guidelines in place and which grade level which they can help them implement them as well at home. So eventually down the road, they'll be able to see modeled behavior, how to use AI. So, but they, at the end, really at just the end, we want students to not to avoid AI because I think at this point, um, AI is going to be part of life, just like computers was 20 some years ago. And so as we can see, we want them to be fully engaged in it, but in a sense where they have the ethical and the practical guided steps that they learn throughout the years. And I think the school is the best place to learn those elements. And so, of course, the ultimate goal, educating students who grow into thoughtful leaders, using the tools as a service of truth, human for others, and the common good. And if we model that in the classroom, and as we do in most of the idea of car driving, we have a powerful tool in the car, but we have to model that. And so we see most of the people are driving safely. We're using them wisely. We're not abusing it. We're not causing harm to others. Obviously, there are some people who do, but majority of people are using it for the good. And same thing with AI. I think that is kind of the same metaphor that we need to set up in the classroom. But anyways, this is a outline. I thought it was a practical outline. And please, if this is something that you want to use, let me know because I have the full outline of each of the elements of elementary, middle school, and high school implementation. You're more than welcome to use this, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you very much.